Buenos días, ¿cómo allez-vous? Béni soit l'Éternel. Hoy es martes. It's Tuesday, and we're going through the book of Romans. And hi. It's Japanese for yes. That has no relevance to anything, but I just thought I'd try to impress you that I know another word in another language. Paul in Romans 1 is reviewing and indicting in the name of God how the world went from created by God, aware of God, with a conscience, obvious nature around it, nature speaking of a creator. How did they get from that into the gross darkness of sacrificing their own children to idols, to lives of total impurity? He's running this by the Gentile world. He's going to get to his own people in a second. But right now he's talking about how that happened and how God reacted to this terrible movement, turning back on God, willfully. A choice made. We all make choices. We sow and we reap. There's choices. So in verse 22, he says, although they, the people who turned away from God, their thinking became futile, they wouldn't glorify God. They wouldn't say thank you to God. No. Their foolish hearts were darkened. You see, in rejecting God, there was a repercussion in themselves. You just don't fool with God, turn your back on him, and not have repercussions. What were the repercussions? Although they claimed to be wise, now in rejecting God, they said, but let us give you our wisdom. We're going to give you our philosophies, our literature. We're going to tell you how smart we are. And meanwhile, the fool has said there is no God. But they're pretending to be wise. They became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being and birds and animals and reptiles. What? You talk about a fall, the fall of man. From knowing God, having fellowship with God at the very beginning, one thing led to another, like it just so happens to be in life. One thing leads to another. And this downward spiral, instead of worshiping the immortal God, the God who was, is, and always shall be, they traded immortality of God and they said, let's worship humans. Let's worship another human being. Well, they made images that looked like human beings and birds and animals and reptiles. So they turned to idolatry. They worshipped images that looked like human beings, but they made it. How can you serve and worship something you just made it? I mean, you just put the tool down and now you're going to bow to it? It's madness. Humans made it. The money was printed. How can you worship money when it's printed and it can all burn up? You can lose it in a day. How do you worship that? But worse, they started getting into worshiping not the creator, but the creation. Birds, animals, reptiles. Think of people today who give reverence to animal life. And the creator that made it, they spurn and malign and curse. They don't want to worship God. They just want to hug a tree. Not against hugging a tree if that's what you're into. And we should respect the creation, shouldn't we? But I mean, really. They started to worship reptiles, birds, animals. Sacred animals. Can't kill that animal. We're starving to death. We could eat that. No, it's sacred. Think of it. But professing to be wise. You know, when the Roman generals were fighting battles, they kept pigeons and birds in cages. And they wanted to get omens and get direction to know what to do in the upcoming battle. So they would look at the droppings. You got it? Like droppings? You know what I'm saying here? The droppings of the birds or the animals they had. See how they dropped on the cage when they did their business. To get direction for a battle from the shape of the droppings of the animal. This is the brilliant Roman Empire. Such fools. Did they do good things? Was there a level of intelligence? Yes. They built good roads. They conquered. But superstitious, going weird, try to consult the dead when you have a living God you could talk to. There have been people, one of the wives of our president way back decades ago, she dealt with witches and people trying to talk to the dead and astrology and what are you, a Taurus, a Virgo, a Leo? From the stars, they're trying to get direction, but they're really bright. They're PhDs. Like, read my palm. I really want to know what's going to happen in my life. Could you read that? What do you see in there? I see 5 fingers and some skin. Why don't we consult God's word? No God's word. No God. My palm, please. Think of it. The madness of it. But sophisticated enough that people buy into it and make fun of people who believe in the living God. And they're doing what? Oh my goodness, when you think about it. If they just knew God, they would be happy and have joy and peace. Now, rejecting him, they have to turn to every kind of drug and alcohol, and they wreck their lives and hurt their children. And yet they're saying, we're smart, you crazy religious people. What's wrong with you? Such ignorance. That's Paul's argument. What do you think? That's how God looks at it. Remember, they're without excuse. They knew God. They went from theism to atheism, all on their own. We're not going to do that today. We're going to bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. God bless you.